Hi everyone, Heather here with Astrology with Heather.com, and I am back with another weekly forecast. And this one is for Monday, September 30th, all the way through to Sunday, October 6th of 2019. And so this week we have a really intense energy brewing. We have Pluto, which is the planet of death, rebirth, transformation, power struggles, control issues, obsessions, compulsions, suspicion, paranoia, psychological issues, trauma, all of these really intense themes. And it's stationing to go direct, and that's going to be happening on Wednesday night and into Thursday morning, depending on where you are in the world. For some of you, it'll be happening Thursday afternoon. And so this is an energy that's going to bring up a lot of potentially some fears, some baggage, some old wounds, issues, traumas that have been buried beneath the surface. This is an energy that might feel really intense for certain people, especially for people who are born with the sun, moon, rising, or a lot of their personal planets in the cardinal signs. And so the cardinal signs are Aries, Libra, Cancer, and Capricorn. And so Pluto is stationing to go direct in the sign of Capricorn. And so Pluto has actually been retrograde since the end of April. And so when Pluto is moving direct, it's already an energy that's very psychological, very internalized. It has to do with what's going on in our inner world. It's about internal transformation through dealing with psychological patterns and issues that are really lying beneath the surface. It's about empowering ourselves by surrendering and letting go of anything that's not true to us, anything that's not in alignment with our deepest desires, because that's also Pluto. Pluto is about our deepest, truest desires that are undeniable, and it's a very focused energy where with that Pluto energy, if we are laser focused on our truest, deepest desires that we feel at our core, we can really accomplish a lot and manifest a lot of really great things in our lives. If you're not in touch with that and you're holding on to things that are sort of excess, then it's a little bit of a different energy. And so Pluto has been coming on and off with that conjunction with Saturn this year. And so we've been going through this period of restructuring, of breaking down old responsibilities, old burdens, old structures that in our lives that feel oppressive or controlling or really heavy and difficult to break out of. Anything in our lives that's holding us back from feeling empowered to do the things that we want to do in the way that we want to do them, especially when it comes to business, especially when it comes to our work, especially when it comes to the responsibilities that we've taken on in our lives that maybe are past their expiration date and are now holding us back and bogging us down. That's what we've been really actively working throughout this year. Well, since Pluto has stationed to go retrograde back in April, it's an even more internalized expression of the energy of Pluto. Anytime you have a planet going retrograde, it's a little bit stronger in terms of the energetic influence because it's a little bit closer to the Earth, and also it's more internalized. It's more about what's going on in our subjective reality as opposed to external manifestations of that transit. And so what I mean by this with Pluto is that it's going to be more about our inner world. And so when Pluto goes retrograde, we have to reevaluate our attachments on a psychological level, or our behavioral patterns that are holding us back from moving forward in pursuit of our deepest and truest desires. And so with Pluto in retrograde, it's been a time of looking at any past fears or past traumas that we've been holding on to that are controlling us currently in the present moment, that are oppressing us and preventing us from moving forward and from connecting with what we truly want or what we truly came here to accomplish. We've also been looking at attachments to physical events, situations, people in our lives that no longer serve us, that maybe we're holding on to because it feels comfortable or because we don't know what's going to happen if we let these things go. It's that lack of control, that fear of lack of control that often holds us back and causes us to suffer through these Pluto transits, because Pluto is helping us to dump anything that is dead, toxic, and expired. It's helping us to either purge these energies or to transform it into something really beautiful, where something really, really powerful and really beneficial for us can grow out of that energy. So it's kind of like that phoenix rising from the ashes energy. That's a very common archetype that is associated with the energy of Pluto. But Pluto also rules things like toxicity, detox, decomposition. It rules things like composting. So if you think about this in terms of like compost, right? It's about taking all this dirty, gross stuff that we don't want to hold on to anymore. That's toxic. That's just holding us back. That's expired. It's like all this produce is rotting, right? And we have it in our kitchen and we're like, oh no, what do we do with this? I've been holding on to it because I wanted to eat it, but I took too long. Or, you know, it's not ripe anymore, it's overripe. And so I need to figure out what to do with this. And so Pluto is about taking all of that rotting stuff in your life, especially emotionally. So like the emotional baggage that's rotting and like hurting you on maybe even a physical level because you're holding on to all of this past pain. And it's about taking that and putting it into something new, right? Putting it into this decomposition phase where it can be broken down, and it can be broken down to its core elements, so that way you can grow something really beautiful out of the remnants of those situations. And so it's being transformed into something completely new. If you think about compost, you put it in your garden and then you grow brand new plants out of that. That's essentially the energy of Pluto. So hopefully that makes sense what I was talking about there with the compost and all of that. But that's the main energy this week. Pluto is stationing to go direct. And this is kind of the last chance. So this could be an energy where you feel really intensely about an important relationship or an important situation, or even something from your past that you've been holding on to and really working toward letting go or transforming that energy, because it could be a letting go completely. Maybe it's, you know, this food is toxic and moldy and gross, and like you don't want to compost it because it's no good, or, you know, maybe it was toxic to begin with, it was sprayed with pesticides, so you don't want that anymore, so you just throw it away. Or maybe it's something that was originally very good and it started to break down, and now you have to figure out what to do with it, how to transform it, how to create and grow something beautiful out of something that, you know, is kind of at this point like not useful to you anymore. And so this could apply to an important relationship in your life. This could apply to a job situation or a financial situation in your life. This could apply to important friendships. This could apply to, again, that psychological or emotional baggage that you've been holding on to, because maybe deep down inside it's comfortable for you to hold on to these things because you've really adopted it as being a part of who you are and a part of your identity, and maybe that's no longer so. And so the way that this really manifests is going to be determined by where this is happening in your birth chart. And so we're going to get into that when we get into the forecast for all 12 signs in just a minute here. But the other aspects this week are really highlighting this energy. The main other, I mean, there's really not a lot going on this week outside of Pluto stationing, which is good, because Pluto stationing is a pretty intense energy as it is. It's going to feel really intense. It's going to feel, for some people, very empowering. It's going to be a time where you're going to push through and you're really going to be doing that final purge, that final letting go. So, and this might even be you letting go of that emotional baggage so you can move forward to letting go of the physical components to that, the physical attachments that are related to that psychological or emotional attachment, right? So maybe you've been holding on to, like I mentioned before, a relationship because you have these attachments psychologically and emotionally to this person, and so you finally release those attachments. And so when Pluto moves forward over these next couple of months, you might actually be able to physically let go of that relationship. So that's just one example of many. We'll get into the forecast for all 12 signs. But the relationship part I bring up intentionally. This is because at the start of this week, as Pluto is stationing to really just stand still and bring that really intense transformation that a lot of us really need. It's going to bring us to that breaking point where it's like, okay, I have to let go of this now. This enough is enough. I just need to do it. And so a lot of people will feel that way. And the reason that relationships are so important is that at the beginning of this week on Monday, just 2 days prior to Pluto stationing to go direct, Venus will square Pluto. And so Venus rules relationships. It rules our relationship dynamics, the way that we interrelate and show love and appreciation to people, and the way that we want love and appreciation showed to us in return. So the start of this week is going to show us where in our relationships we've given up our power, where we feel controlled, where maybe we're holding on to psychological attachments to past relationships that no longer serve us, or where we're holding on to psychological attachments to the way things were in current relationships that no longer serve us. And maybe we need to transform those relationships, but we're holding on to our memories or an idea of the way things should be based on the past. And so that's really what's going to be coming up this week, especially at the start of this week. And I mean, through the middle of this week too, it's a week-long energy, if not longer. And so it's going to be a very powerful week. This could also be looking at, psychological and emotional attachments to physical objects or to material possessions or financial situations. This could bring up power struggles and control issues involving money or finance, especially joint finances, or debt, taxes, inheritance, all of these things that are very Plutonian. But the main energy is really centered on relationships. So especially with Venus being in the sign of Libra, which Libra is the sign of relationships. It's balance and harmony that is obtained through our ability to interrelate with others. And so again, that's really what's being highlighted this week. So I'm going to get into the forecast for all 12 signs. And before I do, I don't really have like a ton of announcements. I'm actually just working really hard right now on getting caught up on things, on finishing readings orders that were placed over the summer before I stopped taking orders, and finishing up a couple of courses that I'm developing for you guys as well. So I'm kind of in a wrapping up phase right now. But the one new thing I do want to let you guys know, if you are a Scorpio, speaking of Pluto, if you are a Scorpio sun sign, your solar return forecast is actually going to be available in just a few days. And so it is available right now for 25% off if you pre-order your forecast prior to October 1st. On October 1st, your 2-hour-long solar return forecast that gives you a roadmap for the year ahead based on your solar return energy when your sun returns to its natal position on your birthday. It's available on October 1st. It's going to be released for you all, and I'm really excited about this one. I'm finishing it up right now, and it looks like Scorpios are going to have a pretty good year. So I love when I get to deliver good news in these forecasts. So again, the link is down in the description below. All right, so let's get into the forecast now for all 12 signs. So for Aries and for Aries rising, Pluto is stationing to go direct in your 10th house, and the 10th house is the house of career, public reputation, and your relationship with people in positions of power and authority. And so there's been something that you've been working on letting go of or releasing attachments to. Maybe you've been working over the past few months on figuring out what you truly need, want, and desire when it comes to your career path. And maybe part of that process has been figuring out what no longer serves you in your current trajectory with your career. This could also have brought up psychological or emotional attachments to power and control issues in the workplace, or power and control issues with people in positions of power and authority. Maybe you've been very submissive to authority and you realize that that's not truly serving you. Or maybe you've been struggling and fighting against people in positions of authority and that's no longer serving you. But in either case, you're working really hard now on deconstructing and reconstructing the area of career and public reputation. And so this is a great week to reflect on any psychological blockages, any psychological attachments to the way things were that are not serving you when it comes to moving forward and empowering yourself to have the career or to have the public status or the fame or to have the relationships with the people in positions of authority in your life that you truly desire and you truly need. And so that's going to be the main energy for Aries and for Aries rising. And then for Taurus and for Taurus rising. So this energy is going to be playing out in your ninth house, which is the house of beliefs. It's the house of your religious, philosophical, ethical, moral value systems. It's the belief systems in your life that you hold dear and that frame your perception of this reality. It's also an area where you go to gain perspective on life. It's an area that has to do with higher educational pursuits, wisdom gained through experience. It's an area that has to do with travel, especially long distance travel, or dealing with people in foreign countries. So Pluto stationing direct for you, Taurus, it's not actually a terrible energy, especially if you have your sun, moon rising near that 20th degree in the sign of Taurus. And so anywhere really from 18 to 22 degrees, you're going to be feeling this in a very positive, very empowering way. This is going to be an energy that really empowers you to connect who you are and the way that you navigate through the world to your truest and deeply held belief systems, moral and ethical value systems. It's going to allow you to connect very deeply with your integrity in the way that you act and move through life. Pluto stationing in the ninth house could bring up really intense situations around travel or around teachers or around teaching. This could also be you just having to really go back, or having had to really go back over these past few months. So you've had to go back over these past few months and reevaluate and reassess your beliefs and look at where you're holding on to maybe some rigid dogmatic belief systems that maybe are fear-based or maybe are based in something that no longer serves you. And so these beliefs might be really far past their expiration date, but maybe you have some sort of psychological attachment to these beliefs. And so this is a time where that's really going to come up for you, where if you're holding on to value systems, beliefs, moral and ethical sort of rules that you abide by that are not serving you, that are not in alignment with your core truth and who you really are and what you deeply desire and what you need in order to gain that perspective in life that frames your reality and gives it meaning, then this is really going to come up for you, and you're going to have to work on letting go of attachments to these ideas, to these beliefs, so that way you can move forward with greater integrity. All right, and then for Gemini and for Gemini rising, this energy is happening with Pluto stationing in your 8th house. And so Pluto's already a really 8th house energy. The 8th house is about death, debt, finances, other people's money, inheritance, power struggles, control issues, obsessions. But it's also a deeply healing, deeply regenerative energy. And so when Pluto's in your 8th house, this could be an energy of deep healing from the inside out. Over the course of the past few months, you might have been reevaluating past fears, anxieties, traumas, insecurities, things that have been holding you back and controlling you from the inside out. Because when we hold on to fear, when we hold on to past experiences that were negative, and really sort of project that into our current reality, it controls our behavior, whether we understand that it is doing that or not. And so this has been probably a time of facing your fears, facing your deepest demons, and figuring out how you can release attachments to these fears, how you can release these fears and these traumas and all of this baggage and heal yourself from the inside out, so you can move forward with just greater empowerment, right? And move forward without all of this baggage, so you know that the choices that you're making are choices that are being made out of a space of clarity and empowerment, and not from a place of fear. There could have also been issues, maybe psychological or emotional attachments to dealing with other people's money, debt, taxes, joint finances. There could have been power struggles coming up around debt, joint finances, taxes, things like that. And so now's a time where you can release any old stagnant energy around those themes, and so you can move forward with greater empowerment, because you're not being controlled by somebody holding money over your head. All right. And for Cancer rising, so this energy is happening with Pluto stationing direct in your 7th house. And the 7th house, it's the house of relationships. And so this one is where, when we talked about at the beginning, relationships stuff coming up and psychological and emotional attachments and relationships, this is where that really comes into play, is for these Cancer rising people and Cancer sun sign people in particular. And so for Cancers, especially if you have your sun, moon, or rising sign near that 20th degree, so anywhere from 18 to 22 degrees, you'll be feeling this really intensely. And so for you guys, you've been working on restructuring your most important relationships in life. This applies to all close personal relationships, not just marriage partnerships, but especially marriage partnerships. And so it could be that you are working through power and control issues, or working on letting go of or reconstructing important relationships in your life, including business partnerships, close friendships, but especially romantic partnerships. And so this is a time where you've been going through and doing the emotional work, the inner work, letting go of psychological attachments to that relationship if that relationship is toxic and it no longer serves you, or letting go of psychological attachments to the way things were or the way you thought things should be in your relationships. And that's a very necessary step in order to transform these relationships and turn them into something really beautiful, and to feel empowered and to strengthen the relationships moving forward. If relationships in your life that you're holding on to are not good for you, if they are toxic, if they're holding you back, if you're being controlled by the person, or if there's something difficult going on that is just not necessarily redeemable, then this is a time when you're going to have the final purge of releasing your psychological attachments to these relationships. And it can be really difficult for some people. And you're going to be working on, hopefully over the next couple of months, physically letting go of those partnerships moving forward. But there's a definite transformation or change that needs to occur on a physical level regarding important relationships in your life. And this is going to really highlight that for you. For Leo and for Leo rising, this Pluto station is happening in your 6th house, which is the house of work, health, and daily routines. And so over the course of the past few months, you might have been looking into psychological or emotional issues that are causing physical issues in your life. And so what I mean by this is maybe you've been looking at, digging up your past traumas, your fears, your anxieties, anything from your past that you're holding on to in your body that might be contributing to physical illness. So this is a time where you might have been going through a psychological healing process that, when Pluto goes direct, will lead to physical healing. This could also be you looking at psychological or emotional attachments over these past few months related to your work and your daily routines. Maybe you've become obsessed with doing the same thing day in and day out, and it's become a little bit too much. Maybe you've become really attached to a certain habit or routine or structure in your life and in your work experience, and it's no longer serving you. It feels oppressive, but you don't really know how to let go of it because it feels comfortable to you, or because you become really habituated to it or attached to it in some way. And so maybe you have to let go of the way things that you want to look, or let go of controlling every single thing in your day-to-day experience, so that way you can move forward by really connecting with your deepest, truest desires when it comes to your work, and especially your day-to-day work life and what you want that to look like. This could also have brought up power struggles and issues involving subordinates in your work, or involving coworkers. And so if that's the case for you, then this is a time for you to shed and let go of any power struggles or any toxic relationships in your workplace as much as you can, or at least let go of allowing that to bother you on a psychological level. So for Virgo and for Virgo rising. So for Virgos, this is happening in your 5th house. And so for Virgo rising people and Virgo sun sign people, this energy isn't going to be as difficult as it will be for some of the other signs, because you are an earth sign. And so that means Pluto is stationing in trine with your ascendant or your sun or your moon sign, depending on what it is that you're listening to here. And so Pluto's stationing, especially if your sun, moon, or rising is near that 20th degree in the sign of Virgo, which would be 18 to 22 degrees, you'll be feeling this the most. And if that's the case, then this is going to be a time where you are transforming your identity out in the world very easily to align yourself with your truest and deepest desires, with who you truly are and what you truly came here to do. And it would happen quite naturally. And through this process, you'd be very empowered, especially when it comes to connecting your hobbies, interests, and passions to your personality and to your path in life and the way that you view the world. So this is a very empowering transit. This could also indicate psychological healing that has been going on over the past few months that might contribute to physiological healing as well, because the ascendant is an indicator of the body. This is also Pluto stationing in your 5th house, which is helping you to figure out what you truly and deeply desire on a psychological level when it comes to your passions, your hobbies, your interests, romance, the things that fire you up and get you excited about life. This is you breaking down blockages, barriers, oppressive energy that prevents you from connecting with your passions and your truth and what you really want to do, because it's fun for you and it brings you joy. And this could also be you letting go of any psychological blockages to that too. Maybe, you have some past experience where maybe in your childhood, your parents told you that you had to work and be responsible and you couldn't play. And, maybe you're holding on to something like that. So this is a time for exploration regarding those themes. But this is really about you honing in on your passions and really running with that. And so this could actually be a very empowering time for Virgo and Virgo risings on a personal level, on a relational level, and when it comes to connecting with your passions and utilizing that for something in physical reality moving forward. All right, and then for Libra and for Libra rising. So for Libras, this energy is happening in your 4th house of the home and family. And so this is going to be a more difficult energy for Libra rising people, especially if you have your sun, moon, or rising sign near that 20th degree in the sign of Libra. And so anyone who has their planets from anywhere from 18 to 22 degrees will be feeling this the most. And so not only will this potentially bring up deep fears, anxieties, past traumas from your early childhood, from your upbringing. This could bring up power struggles and difficulties regarding your home life or your family or your living situation in some way. This could be you having to let go of psychological attachments to your current place of living or to your current family structure or family dynamic in order to release it and create better, less oppressive structures for yourself moving forward. This could also bring power struggles or a lot of intense energy, jealousy, suspicion, obsession in relationships. And so, tread lightly in relationships this week, because this is going to show you, first off, where you might be holding on to psychological attachments to relationships that are not serving you. Or you might be holding on to psychological attachments to the way things were in important relationships. And you need to let go of those attachments in order to transform the relationships into something better moving forward. And this doesn't have to be, romantic partnerships, although that's a stronger energy. This could be family relationships. This could be work-related relationships or business partnerships. And so it's letting go of the way you think things need to be and surrendering control a little bit so there's space to transform and grow into something new. This could also be like a psychologically intense time overall for you, because this is squaring your ascendant. And so this could bring up fears or anxieties around your body or your health. This could bring up fears or anxieties around, so not necessarily fears and anxieties, although this could be the case, but if you are a Libra rising and you're acting outside of who you truly are, if you're not connected to your truth and what you deeply desire and how you deeply desire showing up in the world, if you're being inauthentic, Pluto is going to show you that, and it's going to be very difficult to act outside of who you truly are and what you truly want. And so this is also a time of figuring out what you desire on a personal level, what you desire for your home life, what you desire in relationships, and kind of on a lesser level, what you desire for your career, your public status, and what you're putting out there into the world. All right, and then for Scorpio rising. So this energy with Pluto stationing is happening in your third house of communication. So this is not as intense of an energy for Scorpios and Scorpio risings in particular, because this is going to be Pluto stationing in sextile with your sun, moon, or rising sign. Especially if you're a Scorpio rising, this will also be in trine with your descendant. And so, and this is particularly true for Scorpio rising or sun signs who have their planets or the points in their chart near that 20th degree in the sign of Scorpio. And so anywhere from 18 to 22 degrees will be feeling this the strongest. So Pluto stationing in the third house will have you really looking at psychological and emotional attachments to your thought processes, to your communication style, to belief systems. So especially over the past few months, you might have been looking at your mindset around things. You might have been looking at any fears or anxieties that you are holding on to around communicating your truth and speaking out authentically. This could be letting go of any oppressive, burdensome energies around communication, marketing, connections with your community, and transforming those relationships into something better. This could also be looking at difficulties, power struggles, control issues, or getting to the core issues in relationships with extended family members or siblings. And so that could have been coming up for you as well. Pluto trining your descendant could really bring up a lot of powerful, transformative energy in a positive way in terms of your close personal relationships, especially marriage partnerships. And so this is the time to really go deeper, to forge a deeper, more intimate connection in your relationships through open and honest communication, through sharing intimate details with your partner, and strengthening your relationship and transforming it in a really powerful and empowering way moving forward. And on a personal level, this could just feel very empowering for you. You might feel fired up, and you might feel like you're ready to push forward into something. And so this is a good energy for that as well. All right, and then for Sagittarius and for Sagittarius rising, Pluto's stationing to go direct in your second house of finance. And so over the course of the past year, you've had Saturn and Pluto coming into this conjunction on and off in your second house of finances, material possessions, money that you create through your own hard work and efforts. And so with Pluto there, you've been working on letting go of oppressive, controlling, burdensome energies related to finances. So anything that's holding you back from creating the resources that you want to create. Maybe you have certain responsibilities to your family or to debts that are unpaid. And so you've been working on releasing attachments to these things on a psychological level, or releasing fears around finances or the lack thereof on a psychological level. So you've been facing your fears around money. This could also be a final purge where you're truly and completely letting go of oppressive energies that are really weighing on you, that are controlling your behavior through holding money over your head. And so that could be an employer that is really oppressive, and that's controlling you in one way or another through your livelihood. This could be releasing psychological and emotional attachments to a certain job or a certain field that's no longer serving you, and you could have these attachments because there's a fear of not having resources if you move on to something different. This could be you letting go of psychological and emotional attachments to money and resources in general, because maybe there's a lack, with Saturn transiting. And this could also be you letting go of debts, letting go of issues, power struggles with money and joint finances, paying off debts. This is also you just figuring out what you truly and deeply need, want, and desire when it comes to your financial situation. So that way you can let go of anything toxic that's not in alignment with that and create better structures that are more adaptive and more true to yourself moving forward. All right, and then Capricorn and Capricorn rising. So for Capricorns, this is happening in your sign. So this is the most intense for Capricorns, especially if you have your sun, moon, or rising near that 20th degree in the sign of Capricorn. So anywhere from 18 to 22 degrees will be feeling this the most. And so Saturn stationing in your sign, this might feel like a very heavy, very intense, very oppressive energy. When Pluto is transiting your first house, you can be going through a psychological a psychological transformation or a psychological crisis that is deeply personal to you. And so even though maybe on the outside it seems like you're making so much progress and you have all this great stuff going on for you, and maybe on an external level there's not a lot of hardship that people can see, physically, but internally you're going through this crisis of identity, crisis of really determining who you are and what your trajectory should be in this lifetime, and how to align yourself and your truth with what you came here to do, with what you deeply, deeply desire. And so it can feel like you're going through a bit of a psychological crisis. The psychological crisis that you're going through could not just be a crisis of identity, it could be a psychological crisis involving your relationships. It can involve power struggles and control issues in relationships. It could be a psychological crisis that extends into your career path and how you connect who you truly are with what you should be doing out there. It could be a psychological crisis related to your family situation and maybe oppressive energies within the family structure or within your living situation that are not serving you and that you feel like are preventing you from being who you truly are, from being authentic, from connecting with your deepest desires. And so this might all be coming up for you. And so the hallmark of these types of Pluto transits are that you're going through it kind of alone, because it is so internal, it is so psychological that other people don't fully understand. So even if you have a great support system, it might feel like they don't really get what you're going through. And so part of this process is having to work through it on your own, work through the internal baggage in order to create that external transformation as a result. Pluto on the ascendant can also create a deep healing crisis that can heal you from the inside out. So healing the psychological in order to impact the physical. All right, and so Aquarius and Aquarius rising. For you guys, this Pluto station is happening actually in your 12th house, which is not as intense of an energy because Pluto is already deeply psychological, deeply subjective. It's more internal. It's happening in the 12th house, which is the house of your subjective reality. So you might just be feeling like you have some really intense energy that's like subconscious or behind the scenes, where there's something going on that's ominous. This could increase your psychic capacities in a way that could be scary to you, where you're picking up on things that bring up fears or anxieties or traumas from your past. This is you really having to let go of any psychological attachments to past events, past circumstances. This is a true purge and a true letting go of anything and everything in your life that is ending, that is past its expiration date, that you need to move on from. And this is in preparation over the course of several years for Pluto eventually hitting your ascendant in Aquarius. And so this is a time for you to do that inner work, to do that purge, to do that psychological work. You might have really intense, vivid dreams or nightmares during this time. Pay attention to what comes up in those dreams. Pay attention to what those nightmares are about, because it's trying to show you something. All right, and then for Pisces and for Pisces rising. So for Pisces rising, this is happening in your 11th house, which is the house of friends, groups of people, social networks. It's also altruistic and humanitarian types of pursuits and rewards that you get socially from the hard work that you put into the 10th house of career. And so for you, you've had Pluto retrograding in your 11th house, which might have been bringing up psychological or emotional attachments to groups of people or certain friendships in your life. And so it could be that there are relationships in terms of like group relationships or friendships that are toxic to you and that are past their expiration date and are no longer serving you moving forward. Luckily, this is a more of a positive energy for Pisces rising, because Pluto will be sextiling your ascendant and Pluto will also be trining your descendant. And so this is the time to really transform your relationships. So this is where you're letting go of any relationships that are not deeply loyal, that are not in alignment with your true desires and what you really deeply need in terms of your friendships. And this extends to close personal relationships, including romantic partnerships as well. And so you've been very easily, very gradually transforming your relationships relationships and letting go of the ones that are not good for you, that are controlling or oppressive in some way, or that are not in alignment with what you truly desire in relationship. And at the same time, as you're purging all of the excess, really developing deeper intimacy in the relationships that matter, that are going to stay with you for the long haul. And so this Pluto energy could have you looking at any psychological issues or fears that are holding you back from either letting go of relationships that don't serve you, or that are holding you back from transforming those relationships because you really liked the way that they were, or you got used to the way that they were. And so the idea of changing things and maybe disrupting that can be scary. So there are relationships that require a deep transformation and an overhaul in your life. And there are other friendships in particular and close relationships that need to just be you just need to let go of. And it can happen quite easily, especially if you are a Pisces rising at that 20th degree or near that 20th degree, between 18 and 22 degrees. That's where you're going to be feeling this more positively, and it's going to feel like a more empowering transit where you feel like, okay, I know what I want, I know what I need. I'm going to let go of these friendships because they're just not part of my path anymore, and I'm going to really focus on deepening the relationships that are true to me and true to my path, and that are in alignment with my desires, the loyal, trustworthy friendships that I really want to hold on to. All right. And so that is my forecast for all 12 signs. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you liked this video, please like, subscribe to my channel, and you can comment down below and let me know what's going on with you. I like reading your comments, even if I don't respond back to all of them these days. I still like to give you that little heart so I read it, because I do try to read as many as possible. And thank you so much for your support, and I will see you guys next week. Bye.